Ladies and gentlemen, you are not here merely to drift through life like a leaf upon the wind. You are here to rule over every thought, every emotion, and above all, every decision you make. For every decision you take, no matter how small, shapes the grand architecture of your destiny. Understand this. Life does not respond to hesitation. It responds to definite decisions backed by deliberate action. Indecision is the graveyard of opportunity. The person who waits for certainty waits forever, while the one who chooses boldly and owns the consequences becomes the master of his fate. It is not the conditions of your life that determine your success, but the decisions you make in the face of those conditions. Decisions are the levers of power. When you hesitate, you give that power away. But when you rule over your decisions with clarity and confidence, the universe begins to move in your favor. You must decide who you are and what you want. You must decide what you will tolerate and what you will no longer accept. You must decide how your story will unfold, not tomorrow, but today. You see, successful people do not hope, they decide. They do not wait for the mood to strike. They act from a burning desire to fulfill a definite purpose. And let us not forget, to rule your decisions, you must first rule yourself. Self-discipline is the key. It is the general that commands your inner army. Without it, your mind becomes a battlefield of conflicting desires. With it, your mind becomes a fortress, unyielding, focused, and precise. You were not born to be a follower of circumstance. You were born to be a commander of choice. So rise today, stand firm, choose with conviction, act with intention, and rule over every decision, because your future demands it, and your greatness depends on it. Every decision is a seed of destiny. In this one idea lies the entire framework of success or failure in life. Every time you make a decision, whether large or small, you are planting something in the soil of your future. You may not see the results immediately. In fact, most of the time, the effect of a single decision is invisible, quiet, and easy to overlook. But just like a seed sown into the earth, it begins to shape your path beneath the surface, silently growing roots, branching out, and eventually bearing fruit, either bitter or sweet, depending on what you chose to plant. People often underestimate the power of a single moment of choice. They believe their circumstances define them, but it is their responses to those circumstances that write the script of their lives. A man does not become great overnight, and he does not fail in a single blow. Instead, greatness is built one decision at a time. Likewise, ruin is formed through a series of small concessions, careless choices, and delayed commitments. Destiny is not written in the stars. It is written in your daily decisions. It is not difficult to see that the most successful individuals are those who treat every decision with the seriousness it deserves. They understand that the mind is both the sower and the soil. It will accept whatever is planted, and it will return it multiplied. When you decide to pursue a goal, to act with discipline, to focus your thoughts on achievement, you are setting into motion an invisible chain reaction. Ideas gather strength, opportunities emerge, people appear, resources begin to align, but this process can only be activated by decision. Wishing, hoping, and desiring without action are illusions. They produce no harvest. Your decisions act like orders to the subconscious mind. When you decide something firmly and completely, your mind begins to seek ways to fulfill it. The decision itself becomes a command, and the entire system of your being starts to follow. You will find yourself more aware of possibilities. You will hear conversations differently. You will take steps, even small ones, without needing to force yourself. But if the decision is weak, if it is clouded by doubt or fear, then the mind receives no clear command, and so it does nothing. It remains idle, distracted, passive, waiting for someone else to lead. What most people fail to realize is that indecision is itself a decision. Choosing not to choose is still a choice, and one with serious consequences. The world does not wait for you to make up your mind. It keeps moving. Opportunities expire, time passes, energy diminishes. If you allow decisions to pile up, unmade and undecided, You clutter your mental environment and weaken your inner power. Clarity comes from movement. Progress comes from choice. The more you act decisively, the stronger you become. The more you hesitate, the more life begins to slip from your grasp. Think of the people you admire most, those who rise, who build, who conquer challenges, who inspire others. They are not necessarily the smartest or the most talented, but they are clear. They know what they want, and they decide quickly. This does not mean they are reckless. On the contrary, they weigh their options, but they do not dwell endlessly in analysis. They know that overthinking is often a mask for fear, and fear is the enemy of decision. The man who allows fear to guide his choices hands over the keys to his future. He lets the worst possibility dictate his present action, and in doing so, he brings that possibility closer to reality. Every decision, no matter how minor it seems, either strengthens or weakens the foundation of your future. When you decide to wake up early instead of sleeping in, you are telling your mind that discipline matters. When you decide to say no to distraction and yes to focus, you are reinforcing your commitment to your vision. When you decide to take responsibility instead of blaming others, you are stepping into your true power. These decisions accumulate, they build momentum, and that momentum becomes character, and your character is what ultimately shapes your destiny. You must begin to see yourself as the architect of your life. An architect does not build at random. He begins with intention, with a plan, and then he makes deliberate choices at every stage of construction. If a wall must be moved, it is moved with purpose. If a material is chosen, it is chosen with care. The same must be true for you. Do not drift through the days as though your choices don't matter. Every word you speak, every action you take, every attitude you choose, is a brick in the structure of your life. Build wisely, decide with vision. It is often said that people are creatures of habit, but habits themselves are built by decisions. When you make the same decision repeatedly, it becomes automatic. It settles into your nervous system. That is how confidence is built, through repeated decisions to act despite fear. That is how discipline is developed, through repeated decisions to do what must be done even when it is uncomfortable. If you lack confidence or willpower today, it is not because you were born without them. It is because your past decisions have not cultivated them, but that can change. At any moment, you can begin to make different decisions. You can reverse the course of your life with a single firm choice followed by action. Greatness is always a matter of decision. It is not about luck or fate. It is about clarity, courage, and commitment to the path you have chosen. When you understand this, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop waiting for permission. You stop looking for signs. You no longer rely on external circumstances to push you forward. You decide, and then you act. And with each right decision, your power compounds. You walk with greater certainty. You attract better people. You start to live not by reaction, but by intention. So never underestimate the significance of a decision. It may seem small today, but it could be the one that shifts everything. The great men and women of history were made by decisions that at first seemed invisible to the world. A decision to start when others gave up. A decision to believe when others doubted. A decision to persist when every voice said quit. These decisions created the momentum that turned ordinary individuals into legends. Your decisions have the same potential. Every one of them plants a seed, and in time your life will become the harvest. Choose wisely and rule your destiny one decision at a time. Indecision is the enemy of progress. It is the silent thief that steals time, energy, opportunity, and ultimately, life itself. When a person hesitates to make a decision, they are not pausing, they are retreating. While the world continues to move forward, while others act, build, and create momentum, the indecisive individual remains frozen in a fog of uncertainty, letting precious moments slip away. You cannot move towards success if you are standing still in a corridor of doubt. The mind that cannot decide is a prisoner to its own fear. Every person is presented with a series of choices every day, and each choice is a turning point. Some are minor, like how to spend the next hour. Others are major, career, relationships, values, goals, but regardless of scale, the inability to decide creates a blockage in the flow of progress. It stops motion. It causes hesitation that grows heavier with time. The longer you wait to make a decision, the more difficult it becomes to act. What could have been a small step turns into a massive burden. What could have been solved in a moment now requires weeks or months of energy to unravel. Delay becomes decay. The man or woman who cannot decide is ruled by external forces. They look to others to choose for them. They wait for the perfect sign, the perfect moment, or the perfect conditions. But perfection is an illusion. The world does not guarantee clarity. It demands courage. If you wait for total certainty before you act, you will wait forever. Progress belongs to those who choose amidst uncertainty, who risk being wrong for the sake of being in motion. Mistakes made in movement are more valuable than perfect plans never executed. Life rewards the bold, not the hesitant. Indecision wears many masks. It can disguise itself as patience, as wisdom, even as caution. But underneath, it is often rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. This fear tightens its grip every time a decision is postponed. It whispers, what if you're wrong? What if you lose? What if you look foolish? And so the mind, instead of leading, begins to doubt itself. Confidence erodes. Trust in one's own judgment weakens. Over time, a person can become dependent on others to make even the smallest choices. This is not a life of freedom. It is a life of quiet enslavement to fear. Progress, on the other hand, is fueled by clarity and decisiveness. The individual who makes firm decisions, even imperfect ones, begins to gain momentum. Each choice builds the muscle of self-leadership. With every decision followed by action, the mind learns it can be trusted. It becomes more resilient. It bounces back quicker from setbacks. It sees mistakes not as evidence of weakness, but as part of the path. Action leads to feedback. Feedback leads to growth, but none of that is possible without decision. Indecision also breeds confusion. When you fail to choose a path, you invite mental chaos. Thoughts swirl without direction. You entertain too many possibilities, weigh too many opinions, analyze too many scenarios. This mental noise clutters your focus and drains your energy. You may be busy thinking, but you're not moving. And thinking without action is not progress, it's stagnation dressed in productivity. It may feel like effort, but it produces no result. Only action creates change. Only decisions lead to forward motion. The world is full of talented people who never reached their potential because they couldn't decide what to commit to. They drifted from one idea to another, never rooted, never steady, always searching, but never deciding. Talent without decision is wasted, intelligence without decision is unused, even vision without decision is useless. A decision is what turns a dream into a goal and a goal into a plan. Without that spark of commitment, nothing else matters. The most effective leaders in history have not been those who always made the right choices, but those who had the courage to choose. They knew that hesitation weakens trust, both in themselves and in the eyes of others. A leader who cannot decide creates confusion in the ranks. A mind that cannot decide creates confusion in its own spirit. People naturally follow clarity. Progress naturally follows decision. When you choose a direction, you align your thoughts, your energy, and your actions. You become a force, not a question mark. Some believe that waiting protects them from mistakes, but indecision often leads to outcomes far worse than a wrong decision. When you fail to act, life acts for you. You lose your influence over outcomes. You become reactive instead of proactive. You let circumstances decide your path, and that is a dangerous way to live, because the forces around you do not always have your best interest at heart. If you do not choose your values, your purpose, your direction, someone else will choose for you, and you may wake up one day far from the place you intended to be, wondering how you got there. Decisiveness is a habit, just like indecision. Every time you make a firm choice, you reinforce that habit. You train your mind to believe in itself. You build internal strength, and just like a muscle, it gets easier with repetition. Start small if you must. Choose what you will do today and stick to it. Choose how you will speak, how you will carry yourself, what you will focus on, then build. Choose your priorities, choose your mission, choose the kind of person you are becoming. And let every decision, however small, align with that vision. You will make mistakes, that is certain, but a decision made in the pursuit of growth is never truly a failure. It becomes a lesson, a correction, a step in your evolution. But indecision teaches nothing. It only delays, defers, and disappoints. You cannot learn from the road you never walked. You cannot grow from the opportunity you never claimed. You cannot succeed from the action you never took. Therefore, the cost of indecision is far greater than the cost of failure. What you decide determines what you become, and what you delay decides what you lose. In every great achievement, in every breakthrough, there is a moment where someone chose to act. Not because it was safe, not because it was guaranteed, but because they refused to remain still. They refused to let fear steal another day. They moved forward while others waited, and that movement became their advantage. That choice became the doorway to progress. Indecision is the enemy, but it is an enemy you can defeat if you choose. Definite purpose empowers decisive action. Without a clear purpose, the mind drifts. It wanders in circles, reacting to the world rather than shaping it. But with purpose, clear, burning, unmistakable, your thoughts begin to align, your energy sharpens, and your actions gain weight and meaning. Purpose is the magnet that draws everything toward it. It does not just inspire you, it directs you. It filters your choices, focuses your time, and fortifies your resolve when obstacles rise against you. When a person lacks purpose, even the simplest decisions feel difficult. Why? Because there is no standard by which to measure them. Should I do this or that? Should I go left or right? Without purpose, you are left guessing, questioning, hesitating. Every opportunity becomes a distraction. Every path looks equally tempting. But when you have a definite purpose, decisions become simple. Not always easy, but simple. You ask one question: does this move me closer to my goal or not? That clarity cuts through confusion. It eliminates distractions. It reveals the right action even when it's hard. A person with definite purpose does not ask the world for permission. They do not wait to feel motivated. They act because they are driven by something internal, something bigger than their mood or their fear. Purpose is not an idea you casually entertain. It is a mission you commit to. When you have it, you walk differently. You speak with more certainty. You endure difficulty with more patience. And you move with speed, not because you are rushing, but because you are no longer lost. Decisive action flows naturally from a mind that knows where it is going. You don't need to force it. You don't need to rely on willpower alone. When you have a clear destination, every step forward becomes purposeful. You understand that your time is not to be wasted. You realize that your energy is not unlimited. You begin to treat your life as something sacred, not because it is perfect, but because it is directed. And the more you act in line with that direction, the stronger you feel. A definite purpose acts like a compass. It doesn't remove the storms, but it keeps you on course. Life will test you. You will encounter delays, disappointments, even failures. But if your purpose is clear, you do not quit. You adjust, you recalibrate, but you do not surrender. Those who succeed are not those who had it easy. They are those who kept moving in spite of difficulty, because the fire inside them burned brighter than the pressure around them. That fire is purpose, and it fuels a kind of action that cannot be duplicated by mere wishful thinking. People often ask, how do I stay motivated? The answer is not in finding a trick or a hack. It's in discovering a purpose so strong that inaction becomes more painful than effort. Purpose lifts you out of laziness, it silences excuses, it wakes you up early and keeps you up late. It pushes you to study when others are sleeping, to practice when others are relaxing, to persist when others are giving up. It transforms you from someone who reacts to life into someone who creates life. Without purpose, talent is scattered, intelligence is underused, potential is wasted. But with purpose, even average abilities become powerful. Even ordinary people achieve extraordinary results, because purpose gives meaning to every step, every sacrifice, every setback. It makes the pain worth it. It turns suffering into strategy. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, how can I use this? That shift in mindset only comes from knowing where you're going. Definite purpose also builds confidence. When you act in line with your purpose, you build trust in yourself. You see progress, even if it's slow. You develop consistency, and with consistency comes strength. People begin to notice. Opportunities start to show up. But more importantly, you begin to respect yourself, and that self-respect is a foundation for every success that follows. You no longer need to impress others. You no longer need external validation. You are not chasing approval. You are chasing your mission, and that makes you powerful. Purpose also eliminates the poison of comparison. When you lack purpose, you constantly look around at what others are doing. You measure your worth by someone else's pace. You envy their success because you don't know where you're headed. But when your purpose is definite, you stop comparing. You start focusing. You don't care who's ahead or behind because you're not running their race. You are on your own path, guided by your own mission, and that is how peace is found. Not in outperforming others, but in living in alignment with your purpose. It's important to understand that purpose is not something given to you. It is something you decide. You do not need the perfect answer to begin. You need a firm decision. Purpose is forged by commitment. You choose it, and then you commit to it with all you've got, and the more you act on it, the clearer it becomes. The mistake most people make is waiting for passion to show up before they take action. But the truth is, passion follows purpose. The fire does not start until you begin to strike. A person with a definite purpose is not distracted by noise. They are not seduced by shortcuts. They know that real progress requires real effort, but they embrace the challenge because they are not working aimlessly. Every action, every effort, every long night and early morning is part of something larger. It's not just about making money, gaining fame, or pleasing others. It's about fulfilling something deeper, something meaningful, something that resonates in the soul. And that is what gives action its power, not the task itself, but the reason behind it. Purpose simplifies life. You do not need to chase everything. You only need to follow the path that leads to your goal. That alone removes endless stress and confusion. You know who you are, you know what you want, and you know what you're willing to do to get there. That level of certainty is rare, but it is available to anyone who dares to choose a purpose and follow it with all their heart. The world does not need more wanderers. It needs more warriors, individuals who know where they're going and refuse to stop until they arrive. Definite purpose is not just a motivational phrase. It is the core of progress. It is the fuel behind every achievement, every breakthrough, every transformation. Without it, the most brilliant ideas fade. With it, the smallest steps become meaningful. It empowers your actions, magnifies your focus, and builds a life that matters. When your purpose is definite, your action becomes unstoppable. A disciplined mind leads to powerful choices. Every great achievement, every significant transformation, every path of success is paved not by luck, not by chance, but by a mind trained to focus, to think, and to choose with precision. The average person lets the mind wander, react, and follow impulses. But the exceptional individual understands that the mind must be mastered, or it will become the master. A mind without discipline is like an untrained horse. It can run, but it will never take you where you want to go. It will throw you off course, chase distractions, and lead you in circles. But once you train that mind, once you place it under your control, Every decision becomes a tool in your hands, every thought becomes fuel for your journey, and every moment becomes an opportunity for progress. Most people believe discipline is about restriction, but in truth, discipline is liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of impulse, from the chaos of indecision, from the weakness of inconsistency. A disciplined mind is not swayed by the noise of the world or the temptation of the moment. It weighs consequences, considers outcomes, and chooses based on long-term gain, not short-term pleasure. And in that control lies immense power, the power to delay gratification, the power to stay on track, the power to say yes to what matters and no to what doesn't. Without discipline, your choices are reactive. With it, they become intentional, and intentional choices shape a purposeful life. When you master your mind, you no longer become a victim of emotion. You experience emotion, but you are not ruled by it. You feel fear, but you do not bow to it. You feel desire, but you are not dragged around by it. Discipline gives you space between thought and action, a space where reason can breathe, where values can speak, where vision can lead. In that space, you gain freedom, because you are no longer chained to old habits, destructive patterns, or impulsive decisions. You become the architect of your own behavior. Powerful choices do not emerge from a chaotic or scattered mind. They emerge from stillness, from clarity, from awareness. A disciplined mind is not always loud. It is often quiet, observing, reflecting, waiting for the right moment to act. It does not jump at every opportunity or panic at every obstacle. It moves with intention. It listens before it speaks. It studies before it reacts. And when it acts with force. That kind of decision-making creates results that are not only effective but lasting. Because they are built on a foundation, not on a feeling. Most people want to improve their life, but they do not want to discipline their mind. They want change without challenge, strength without struggle. But that is not how transformation works. The disciplined mind is forged through discomfort. It is developed in moments when you don't feel like doing the work, but do it anyway. It is built in the silence of early mornings, in the restraint of turning down temptation, in the consistency of small, powerful habits repeated day after day. Each time you control your mind instead of letting it control you, you add a brick to the foundation of a stronger self. Discipline is not natural, it is trained. It is not born from inspiration, but from repetition. The more you practice control over your thoughts, your focus, your reactions, the more those muscles strengthen. And eventually, what once felt like effort becomes natural. You begin to think differently, not because you forced it once, but because you formed a pattern. You made discipline your default, and from that default, your life begins to shift. Your decisions become sharper, your direction becomes clearer, and your results become bigger. Every day, the mind is tested, by distraction, by doubt, by emotion, by external pressure. Without discipline, these forces pull you in every direction. One day you're motivated, the next day you're lost. One moment you're confident, the next moment you're confused. But the disciplined mind does not depend on mood. It depends on principle. It chooses based on vision, not circumstance. It returns to the goal, no matter how far it drifts. It corrects itself, recenters itself, and continues forward. That is the mark of mental mastery, not perfection, but return, the ability to refocus, realign, and redirect with power and speed. In a world of constant noise, discipline is rare. The undisciplined mind consumes everything: opinions, news, gossip, distractions, until it is bloated and directionless, but the disciplined mind filters. It protects its mental space. It selects what to allow in and what to ignore. It knows that not everything deserves attention, not every invitation deserves a response, not every conflict deserves energy. It conserves its power by directing it wisely, and that conservation creates strength, strength to make bold decisions when others hesitate, to act with clarity when others are overwhelmed. Powerful choices often require sacrifice. They are rarely the easiest path, but the disciplined mind does not seek ease. It seeks excellence. It is willing to endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain. It does not chase comfort, it creates capability. And in doing so, it develops character, because the real reward of discipline is not just the results you achieve. It is the person you become, a person who can rely on themselves, a person who can lead themselves, a person who can command their mind, not be commanded by it. Without discipline, talent collapses under pressure, intelligence is wasted on distraction, potential is lost in indecision, but with discipline, even the smallest advantage becomes a weapon. Even the simplest plan becomes a system. Even the quietest person becomes a force, because when the mind is disciplined, the body follows, the actions align, the vision becomes real, and the life begins to transform, not in a flash, but in steady, relentless motion. Your decisions will determine your destiny, but your mind determines your decisions, and that is why discipline is everything. It is not just about waking up early or resisting temptation. It is about taking ownership of your inner world, about being the commander of your thoughts instead of their captive, about making decisions that move you forward, that build your future, that honor your highest values. Every time you choose discipline, you are choosing power. Every time you act with mental control, you are stepping into leadership, not just over others, but over yourself. There is no greater strength than self-mastery, no deeper power than the ability to think clearly, choose wisely, and act decisively. That strength is not reserved for the few. It is available to anyone who will do the work, train the mind, and stay the course. The disciplined mind does not shout, but it speaks with authority. It does not rush, but it moves with conviction. It does not react, but it responds with wisdom. And from that place, powerful choices become inevitable, because the person who masters their mind does not follow the world. They shape it. Control your inner world, and you control your destiny. All great achievements, all lasting success, all personal transformation begins from within. The world outside may shout, distract, provoke, and pressure, but the man or woman who has mastered their inner world stands firm, unshaken, and unbending. Your destiny is not shaped by the storms around you. It is shaped by the calm or chaos inside you. Life is constantly changing, full of uncertainty, full of challenge, but what matters is how you meet it, how you interpret it, how you decide to respond. That response comes from your inner world, your beliefs, your thoughts, your discipline, your faith. If you rule that space, then the external world loses its grip on you. Most people try to control everything outside: their reputation, their image, other people's opinions, circumstances, timing, outcomes, but none of that is truly within their command. The only real power they have is over their own mind, their own choices, their own reactions. And that is where the greatest opportunity lies. The one who understands this does not waste time trying to manipulate the uncontrollable. Instead, they pour their energy into what is always within reach, their own inner world. They rise early to think, they reflect in silence, they protect their thoughts the way a warrior protects a fortress. They know that every thought entertained, every emotion indulged, either weakens them or strengthens them. There is no neutral ground. The person who governs their inner world becomes unstoppable. Why? Because no matter what happens outside, disappointments, failures, betrayals, delays, they do not crumble. They do not become bitter, they do not retreat. Instead, they rise above. They observe, they learn, they adjust, and they advance. That kind of strength does not come from books, applause, or praise. It comes from struggle. It is forged in silence, in solitude, in decisions made when no one is watching. It is built by mastering the small things, your focus, your attitude, your habits, because when the small things are mastered, the big things fall into place. Destiny is not a matter of fate. It is not some distant, vague possibility waiting to be handed to you. It is created moment by moment, thought by thought, decision by decision. The quality of those decisions depends on the state of your inner world. A mind filled with fear makes fearful choices. A mind consumed by doubt chooses hesitation. But a mind disciplined by clarity, purpose, and inner order makes bold, focused, and powerful decisions. And those decisions shape the direction of your life. A person who wins the battle within no longer needs to be at the mercy of what others say or do. They live from the inside out, not the outside in. What is inside you must be stronger than what's around you. Otherwise, the world will mold you. You will bend to trends, opinions, failures, and fears. But when your inner world is ruled with strength, you no longer react. You respond. You no longer live in confusion. You live with direction. You become the kind of person who leads themselves, who creates clarity in the middle of chaos, who makes progress when others are paralyzed. That is what control of the inner world gives you: stability, strength, and the ability to take command of your own future. Control of your inner world does not mean ignoring reality. It means mastering your perception of it. Two people can face the same problem. One sees failure, the other sees a lesson. One sees a wall, the other sees a test. What's the difference? Not the world, but the way they interpret it. And interpretation comes from the mind. If your mind is reactive, emotional, and undisciplined, you will be a prisoner of your circumstances. But if your mind is trained, principled, and grounded in purpose, you will turn obstacles into tools, losses into leverage, and delay into preparation. To control your inner world, you must first become aware of it. What thoughts are you entertaining? What beliefs are you holding? What emotional patterns are running your day? You cannot change what you don't confront, and you cannot confront what you ignore. The disciplined person observes themselves constantly, not with judgment, but with curiosity and command. They catch their negative thoughts before those thoughts become patterns. They catch doubt before it becomes paralysis. They don't wait until their life falls apart to begin examining their mind. They do it daily. That daily self-examination is how strength is developed. Controlling your inner world also means guarding your energy. What you allow into your mind will eventually show up in your life. Every voice you listen to, every environment you tolerate, every habit you allow is either building your destiny or tearing it down. Control requires protection. You must protect your vision, your standards, your time, your peace. Not everyone deserves access to your attention. Not every invitation is worth accepting. Not every argument is worth entering. The disciplined individual does not engage out of impulse. They choose based on what aligns with their purpose. That kind of restraint is not weakness. It is wisdom. There will be days when you feel off, tired, distracted. That's when inner mastery is tested. It's easy to stay centered when things go well, but control is proven in discomfort. The one who keeps their mind calm in chaos is the one who becomes a leader, not a leader of others, but first a leader of self, and that self, leadership, is the root of every other form of success. Before you manage money, opportunity, or influence, you must manage thought. And once you can do that, everything else begins to respond to you, because you are no longer reacting like the rest of the world. You are moving with control. A powerful destiny is not a straight path. It is a path of growth, resistance, discipline, and learning. You will face criticism, rejection, and uncertainty, but you will also face moments of clarity, power, and breakthrough if your inner world is aligned. The person who wins is not the one who never falls, but the one who gets back up with a stronger mind. They do not beg for easy conditions. They demand more of themselves, and that inner demand pushes them forward when others sit back. You cannot lead your life well if you cannot lead your thoughts well. You cannot build something strong on a foundation of mental chaos, but once your inner world is governed by purpose, discipline, and control, your outer world begins to reflect it. Relationships shift, habits evolve, opportunities arise, not by magic, but by consequence, because your actions change, and your actions always follow the mind. If you want different outcomes, you must start at the source. So remember, your destiny does not depend on luck or timing. It depends on the strength of the inner world you choose to build. Train your thoughts, discipline your emotions, protect your energy, decide what you believe, what you value, and what you will no longer tolerate. Make your mind a place of order, not chaos, of clarity, not confusion, of intention, not reaction. Because once you do that, the world around you begins to move in response, not because it changed, but because you did. And that is how destiny is built from the inside out.